Hello Viewers, no one at New Life Covenant Fellowship could have predicted what would unfold inside the Grand Hall that night. What began as a routine closing sermon at the Holy Convocation turned into one of the most explosive moments the church community had seen in years. When Prophet Carn stepped onto the pulpit, no one knew they were seconds away from witnessing a moment so bold, so raw, that whispers would ripple through the building long before he even finished speaking. And no one knew that what happened behind the scenes would be even more shocking than what the cameras caught. The tension had already been brewing before Carn even reached the stage. Insiders later revealed that backstage conversations were tight, guarded, and strained. Staff members whispered about disagreements over the message he planned to preach. Others worried that last-minute announcements could send the service spiraling into controversy. But the congregation knew none of this. They only felt the heavy anticipation in the air, the type of pressure that makes a room feel too small for what's about to happen. As the worship team took their final note and Carn finally approached the pulpit, the crowd erupted in cheers. But beneath the applause was a tension so subtle that only those closest to the front could sense something was off. His opening words were familiar, comforting even, echoing the cadence and encouragement he was known for. But then his tone shifted. His voice grew sharper. His eyes scanned the room differently, as if searching for someone only he could see. Those in the front rows shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances that hinted they felt a thunderstorm coming, and then it happened, the moment that froze the entire hall. Carn paused mid-sentence, looked out into the sea of faces, and dropped a revelation so unexpected that the room fell into absolute silence. Eyewitnesses described it as a moment of suspended breath, a mixture of shock, confusion, and disbelief sweeping through the congregation like a sudden gust of wind. Even the choir seemed stunned, their expressions slipping from worshipful joy to stunned disbelief. The statement wasn't random. It wasn't improvised. Sources later confirmed that staff had warned him not to address certain internal matters, leadership tensions, unspoken disputes, decisions that had been sealed behind closed doors. But Carn ignored every warning. He brought the topics into the open with boldness that felt almost defiant, exposing secrets that had lived in whispers for months. Suddenly, rumors became public knowledge. Private concerns became communal shock. And the air grew heavy as hundreds tried to process what they had just heard. The ripple of gasps and murmuring spread from the back of the hall to the front. Some were moved to tears, relieved that someone finally spoke what they had felt but never voiced. Others were outraged, their faces tightening in anger as if betrayed by the raw honesty unfolding before them. For the first time, a sacred stage became the center of a public reckoning, but the sermon didn't stop there. What the congregation didn't know was that the real storm had begun moving backstage. Staff members exchanged panicked looks. Leadership figures whispered frantically, attempting to decide whether to intervene. One insider said the tension was so thick, it felt like a confrontation was moments away. And still, Carn pressed forward, refusing to soften his tone or retreat from the uncomfortable truth he had unleashed. Mid-sermon, he pointed, subtly to some, deliberately to others, toward a section where staff members were seated. That single gesture sent shockwaves across the room. Some staff stiffened. Others exchanged looks of alarm. The gesture seemed to confirm what many had suspected: this wasn't just a sermon. This was a line being drawn in front of everyone. Behind the pulpit, the emotions were rising. In the pews, the reactions grew louder. Online viewers watching livestream clips began posting almost instantly. Phrases like "never seen anything like this" and "this was a spiritual earthquake" flooded timelines before the service even ended. Every camera angle, every expression, every pause. It all became evidence for debates that would rage long after the lights dimmed. And then came the second revelation, quieter, but far more dangerous. Carn hinted at deeper issues, long-standing tensions, and unresolved fractures within leadership. He spoke with a conviction that felt less like preaching and more like unveiling. Those present described it as the moment the entire hall realized they were witnessing something historic, a turning point that would shift the future of the ministry. By the time the benediction finally came, the congregation was buzzing. Shocked. Energized. Conflicted. Some left exhilarated, convinced they had witnessed divine truth spoken boldly. Others left disturbed, wondering if the church had reached a breaking point. Social media exploded. Clips went viral. Religious commentators debated every sentence, turning Carn's closing sermon into the center of a nationwide conversation, but the biggest twist came only after the camera stopped. Private conversations from leadership leaked. Insiders confirmed heated debates, urgent meetings, and arguments over whether Carn's revelations had crossed lines that could threaten the church's unity. Some believed he had sparked necessary change. Others feared he had opened wounds that would be difficult to close, and then came the whispers that Carn had hinted, privately, that even more truths had yet to surface. That this sermon wasn't the climax, but the beginning. Those who heard him describe his comments as cryptic, almost haunting. As if the real story was still hidden in the shadows. In the end, the New Life Covenant Fellowship Holy Convocation will be remembered not for its music or its programming, but for the night Brian Carn turned the pulpit into a battlefield of truth. It was a moment of courage and controversy, faith and friction, revelation and reckoning. A moment that shook everyone, those in the room, those behind the scenes, and the thousands watching from afar.